I am one of the maybe small number of people in America that I am obsessed with trains. I love trains. I think trains are the most civilized way to travel. I am actually excited about the Secretary of Transportation position in general, but you being in it changes the game. Not only is it making history, but you have a chance to, as a former mayor, really dig in and make some changes. How long is it going to take before I get my high-speed rail?
Well, I'll tell you, I can't wait. I feel the same way you do. And as you know, the president's a big believer in passenger rail, too. Look, we've been asked to settle for less in this country. And I just don't know why people in other countries ought to have better train service and more investment in high-speed train service than Americans do. Amtrak has done a heroic job with the constraints that have been placed on them. Now we've got to take things to the next level. You look at what not just famously, let's say our fellow our counterparts in Japan are able to enjoy, but really across the world, a place like the UK or Turkey. I want the U.S. to be leading the world when it comes to access to high-speed rail, and I think we have a real opportunity to do that, especially with the bipartisan appetite for real investments that we have before us this year.
Well, it felt bipartisan at a certain point. I mean, we had Infrastructure Week like literally every week during the previous administration. They never actually did it. Republicans talk a good game saying they want it too. It creates lots of jobs. There's lots of opportunity. But they keep hedging because they want it to be privately owned. That was the Rick Scott issue, that they didn't like the idea of the public investing in high-speed rail. They wanted to just be private companies. How do you break that logjam? If you could answer that, and then also, how do you ensure that we don't get another Overtown, that we're not, vivisecting communities of color and putting people of color in a worse situation than they started?
Yeah, that piece is especially important. In fact, today is Transportation Equity Day because it's the birthday of Rosa Parks. Now, I know when you think about all the areas of federal government that deal with racial justice, people don't always think first of the Department of Transportation, but the example of Rosa Parks reminds us how much is at stake. And as you said, it's not just about things like, what the Montgomery bus boycott was about and equitable access to transit, but it's the fact that sometimes, investment came to black neighborhoods all right, but it came in the worst possible way, a highway destroying that neighborhood. You shared that Overtown example. There are examples from Nashville to Richmond to Pittsburgh. And we've got to make sure, first of all, that our policies recognize that history of harm, where this magnificent thing of creating the interstate highway system was so often done with terrible consequences for communities of color. And now we have a chance to get it right. We have a chance to make investments that expand opportunity instead of cutting people off from opportunity, that build and enrich neighborhoods instead of breaking them up. And that's got to be central to the federal transportation policy vision, but also as we're working with different communities, with states and cities and towns and counties and territories and tribes. Tribal citizens in this country have a lot at stake in whether we have equitable transportation funding. Now's our chance to do all of that and more. So it's the right moment to be looking at the equity implications of everything we do in the federal government,